Good morning to you both. So, Paul, firstly, where are we at? Boris is out. Is it a done deal for Rishi Sunak?
Morning, Christine. Yeah, I think there's a good chance we'll have a new PM at 2 p.m. today, which is the tagline that some people are using, because it looks as though Rishi Sunak is so far ahead now in this contest. And after Boris Johnson dropped out late last night, quite a few of his supporters have gone over to Rishi Sunak. So Priti Patel will be a name that many people know. Michael Gove has also backed Rishi Sunak this morning. Penny Mordaunt's team are telling me that she's close to getting the numbers, but you're never sure how much of that is spin. And my instinct at the moment tells me that Rishi Sunak is more likely to be sort of crowned today, to get a coronation and to automatically become Prime Minister this evening. But there's still a chance that Penny Mordaunt goes through and there's a vote of Tory members.
OK. It is incredible. Just last week, Alison, the front of the Mirror, general election. Now you cut straight to the chase with that headline. I can't see that happening, though, anytime soon, can you?
No. I mean, I think now it's going to be particularly difficult. I think what our readers and I think what millions of people across the whole country are really worried about is that since we had that general election back in 2019 when Boris Johnson, we've had him and everything that he got up to, which we all know. And then, of course, we had Liz Truss and the absolute debacle there. And now we've got Rishi Sunak again, who is going... We don't really know anything about how he's going to govern us. Everything has changed from that mandate that Boris Johnson was so proud that he had that huge majority. We're in a completely different world. We know nothing. And so now we've got another Prime Minister being foisted upon us that none of us really, unless you're a Tory MP, really will have had any input into choosing, and they're going to be the boss possibly for the next 2 years. And it just seems really wrong. And there's a real sense in the country that actually we, the people, particularly at the moment when things are so tough for people, should have a say.
It's an extraordinary job to want to take on, almost at this point, isn't it? Because there's a lot of stuff to mop up really quickly.
It's going to be really, really tough for the next couple of years. I mean, he's got some things going for him. I mean, inflation is going to start coming down at some point, so he can probably take that as a win, which it would probably started coming down, whatever, which is good news for normal people. But then interest rates are going to keep going up, bills are going to keep going up. In the short term, this winter's going to be very tough. It's not going to be an easy ride if he does get it.
Yeah. And Paul, you're obviously following the whole story leading up to the last election or a decision between the PMs. I mean, how do you feel Rishi will be feeling this morning? Is he ready just to grab this by the horns? I mean, he's wanted it desperately, we know that, and this just might be his chance.
Yeah, he's quite a cautious individual by his nature. So rather than sort of going in there Boris Johnson style and being bombastic and, yeah, hey, guys, I'm Prime Minister, I think it'll be a bit more of a sort of quietly modest approach to governing. And just picking up on what Alison was saying there, the markets have responded in an extraordinary way to the news that Boris Johnson's dropped out overnight. They think that Rishi Sunak will be a steady pair of hands. We were talking last week about bonds. I won't go into the intricacies of that again because it's so complicated. But the bond market has responded really positively today to the news that Rishi Sunak is the most likely candidate now to become Prime Minister. So I think his priority is just going to be calming that economic storm. We know that, to be fair to him, is his main strength. He's been Chancellor before. He worked in the city. He understands the economy. Others, they were, looking at what he's going to do around Ukraine, for example. He's not been tested on the international stage in the way that Boris Johnson was and the way that Liz Truss was. So, there are areas where he's going to have to get a handle on things very, very quickly.
There was discussions, of course, that Penny Mordaunt could potentially take those votes that Boris had. Do you see that happening today?
There's not a lot of evidence of it so far. I mean, I have to keep scrolling Twitter every 5 minutes to see who's backing who, but the last time I checked, she'd only picked up a couple of votes publicly from MPs who'd come over from Boris Johnson, and quite a few names actually backed Rishi Sunak. Some fairly surprising names as well, people who you might have thought felt quite sort of visceral about, the row that exploded between Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak when he resigned from Boris Johnson's government. There was a lot of bitterness hanging over that, and actually quite a few people who you'd expect to be bitter still have gone over to Rishi Sunak this morning. So my sense is that Penny Mordaunt will struggle, but, hey, let's see what happens later this afternoon.
Well, you say that, Paul, and in times of strife, we need guidance from an alternative, reliable spokesperson, and that is always our mystic pig. And Marcus has been incredibly reliable over recent weeks and indeed months. He decided that Boris should indeed step away, and he was right there. He went, in fact, straight to leave, and he got that absolutely bang on. And then when we asked him before about, it was actually Suella Braverman, and indeed he had a little nibble at the end on Penny's apple. Now, I'm just putting it out there. He's got it right every single time. So here we are thinking Rishi is definitely going to be in number 10 by midnight. It just mightn't happen that way. Marcus doesn't seem to think so.
Well, and I think...
Yeah, I mean, Marcus may as well...
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Alison. I was just going to say Marcus may as well decide, because it's almost that arbitrary. We're leaving it up to 357 Conservative MPs. So, you know, may as well stick your finger in the air, really, to decide who the next Prime Minister is going to be.
Look, you're both very serious journalists, but I just want you to keep this in mind today. And Paul, undoubtedly, you'll be down at number 10 at some point. I want you to just keep thinking about what Marcus says. Alison, that could be the front page of the Mirror tomorrow, let's face it.
You never know. It could be like the very latest plot twist in this long-running saga of who's going to run us.
Absolutely. Well, everyone's kind of thrown their names into the hat. I know, and I would back this person. Baby Spice thinks she can do it.
She'd be great.
And why wouldn't she be brilliant at it? I mean, it's got to the point, unfortunately, where it's become slightly comical.
Yeah, it has. I mean, over the last few weeks, and it's all this sort of like, oh, who could do it? It's all being treated like a little game amongst those people at the top of the Conservative Party. Meanwhile, the rest of the country are worrying about how they're going to pay their gas bill.
Well, we talk about money, and if indeed Rishi does become our new Prime Minister, he would be the first Prime Minister that is wealthier than the monarch.
Yes, I mean, that's quite a sort of mind-blowing fact, really, that, isn't it, in itself? So most of that money comes from his wife's side of the family. So her father's a billionaire in India in sort of tech work. So there's a lot of questions being asked about how can he really understand what it's like, you know, if you're struggling to pay the bills, if you're on universal credit, or if you're a pensioner trying to heat your home. Whether he can really understand that is going to be what he's going to be tested on in the next little while. Whereas Penny Mordaunt obviously says, oh, I know what it's like, I've had to count the pennies. She's made that sort of part of her shtick. She's done different jobs. She's worked in a factory. I think she was a magician's assistant at one point. So she's trying to say, you know, I understand what it's really like out there. But I guess, you know, people can understand, but it's what they can do about it that matters. Yeah.
And she starred in Splash.
She did.
Do we all remember that? Yeah. That could be anybody, but I can assure you that actually is Penny. A moment I'm sure she's hugely proud of.
Yes, or massively regretting, I'm not sure.
It was, yeah, well, you know, tough show, but obviously she's made it tough stuff. Thank you so much, Alison. Pride of Britain this evening,
tonight,
of course, as well. I'll be seeing you there. Very much looking forward to that. On another note, a very positive, lovely night. And Paul, thank you very much indeed. Best of luck today and the next few days, Paul. You'll be a busy boy.
Thanks, Christine.